Well, fencing is an organized sport involving the use of a sword. That's either an épée or a foil or saber for attack or defense, according to a set of movements and rules. Although the use of swords dates back to the prehistoric times and swordplay to ancient civilizations, the organized sport of fencing began only at the end of the 19th century. And fencing itself became an increasingly organized competitive sport late in that 19th century. And men's fencing has been part of the Olympic Games since its revival in 1896. In the 1900, the épée joined the foil and saber as individual events in the Olympic program. Team competition in the foil was introduced in the 1904 Games, followed by the saber and the épée in 1908. Events for women fencers were added to the Olympic contest over the years. There are three different types of three different types of swords used during Olympic fencing. There's the épée, there's the foil, and there's the saber as well. So, but joining us tonight. The foil actually is a light thrusting weapon. The target is really the torso. The épée is actually a heavier type of weapon as well. And the saber is a light cutting and thrusting weapon as well. But joining us tonight is a Nigerian who has made quite a name for himself. I'm talking about Nkosi Brew. He became the first Nigerian to be selected to the prestigious All-American Fencing First Team, joining us all the way from the United States tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, Nkosi. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And also joining us as well is Adeyinka Samuel. He is the president of the Nigerian Fencing Federation. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight on Game On. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Nkosi, let me start with you. Congratulations on making the American team. It's absolutely brilliant, a major achievement. Not many Africans get that honor, but I really have to start. I mean, growing up in the United States of America, you could have had the pick of any sport. You could have had, you could have taken on American football, baseball, maybe even basketball, I don't know. But fencing? How did you get into fencing?
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for having me. So on that topic of that question, I've always loved playing with swords as a child. And I made swords out of wood, cardboard, and plastic, anything I could find at home. And I didn't even know about the sport of fencing until I watched Peter Westbrook alumna, Ibtihaj Muhammad, competing at the 2016 Rio Olympics in women's saber. I was 8 years old, and I literally begged my mother to sign me up at a fencing competition. The day I stepped into the fencing room and borrowed my first sword and borrowed my first mask, that was the day that I knew I was home in the sport. And I've stuck with the sport of fencing ever since.
That's absolutely incredible. And at 16, you've hit a major milestone, making it to the All-American First Team. And I'm sure you must be particularly proud of yourself. And another man I know who's particularly proud of you as well is the president of the Nigerian Fencing Federation, who joins us as well tonight. Congratulations on this achievement. But there are those who are saying that, look, that you're basically taking an athlete that wasn't developed by the Nigerian Fencing Federation, and basically, there are arguments that maybe you're reaping where you didn't sow. But I've also heard other people say that no, Nkosi Brew is actually in the sights, has been in the sights of the Nigerian Fencing Federation for quite a while, and it's someone whose career you have followed quite closely.
Yeah, absolutely. The reality is we have to look at what fencing is as a sport in Nigeria and where we've come from. We've developed it to a level where we've had a lot of athletes, and we started from a young age where we've been picking athletes. So for you to compete in international tournaments, you have to be 13 and above. And we've had kids start with us from age 6, 7. So it takes a while to groom them. So we've always had a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy, or mid to long-term strategy. One of our short-term strategy is to identify fencers in diaspora that are able to start representing Nigeria, of which Nkosi falls within. And he's come to Nigeria, so he does training sessions with the fencers in Nigeria as well. Speaking about it, I myself, I lived in Scotland at the time. I fenced, so I trained in Scotland. I developed fencing or knew about fencing. We've had people where we've identified that, and we are having a lot more people that they're seeing the progress and how much strides we're making internationally, and want to come and represent us that are in the diaspora, and we welcome them while we are equally grooming our athletes. And we have quite a lot of athletes that are being groomed locally and are also getting to that level.
So I think if I get you correctly, so it's pretty much the short-term goal is to get fencers who were born and raised in the diaspora, who have a flair for the sport, to compete for Nigeria while developing local talents in order to ensure that you have both the best of both worlds, as it were. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is fencing really, in terms of picking up, is in recent years that it's picked up in Nigeria. So is for us to start competing and representing Nigeria and doing at that level, we just have to look at where do we have Nigerian fencers that are doing very well and want to fence for us. And as I said, I fence for Nigeria. I learned the sport in Scotland, and I had a great fencing master. And then to come back and say, okay, this is my experience. This is now what I want to bring to Nigeria. How can we train? It's going to take years. We're going to have to train fencing masters. We've been fortunate to have fencing masters come out of our Nigerian program. And then we're now grooming people, and that takes years to get there. And again, we've been fortunate to have fencers that have represented us, world championships, Commonwealth, that have been groomed locally as well. So it takes a while, but that's always been our strategy, short term and mid to long term.
Okay, I actually lived in Scotland for a while. I didn't have a fencing master. I actually had a football master, so I must have been living in the wrong part of Scotland. But of course, coming back to you, the Olympics are already started. I'm sure you're looking really closely at the Olympic fencing as well. Is this a dream for you to one day represent Nigeria at the Olympics?
I think that's my biggest dream long term, actually. And I'll be flying out to the Olympics in a couple of days to go to Paris and watch all the saber athletes compete. So it'll be a really fun opportunity.
So in terms of fencers, looking at the top 10 fencers in the world in the different disciplines, the foil, the saber, épée, which one actually tickles your fancy, or who's your idol, as it were?
Who's my idol in fencing? That's a great question. My idol in fencing would definitely be my coaches, Daryl Homer and Aki Spencerella at the Peter Westbrook Foundation. They've been instrumental in helping me reach the level I'm at now. And they've been coaching me and giving me advice every step of the way. And they'll be a crucial part of my campaign to qualify for the LA 2028 Olympic Games.
Okay, well, it's unfortunately a bit pressure. Gentlemen, you have any questions right now?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask Adeyinka Samuel about funding. How have they been dealing with funding? And what also is the long-term game? What's the long-term plan? Is it to have a Nigerian fencer at the Olympics in the next 8 years, in the next 12 years? What is the long-term game? Can you just break it down for us?
Yeah, how do you want to popularize fencing in Nigeria?
Exactly, and funding crucially.
Okay, that's a great question. So Nigeria fencing is centered around 4 cardinal points. One of it is creating awareness, and we do that by going into several schools and spreading and just making sure that people know about fencing. We're not going to develop the best fencers in that program, but it's just to create awareness. The second cardinal point is to grassroots is a key part. So we work with Suburb, and we've been doing some programs with them since 2017, where we go into grassroots fencing, and we introduce fencing because, of course, the type of sport it is, we make it available to everybody, and we identify talented kids there. We send them into, we give them some level of sports scholarship, and then we give them the opportunity to really compete at a high level. And through that program, we've had 2 fencers, male and female, Temilade and Wisdom, who won 4 medals between themselves at the African Championships. Now, another program really is now to develop elite athletes, and it's through these programs that we have. So intense training programs. Nkosi mentioned a guy called Daryl Homer, who is a 3-time Olympian. He came to Nigeria with Daryl Homer. We had several training camps really to get people to that level. This was last year. And then The fourth one was to get to secure international tournaments. And our objective for securing international tournaments, when I mean securing international tournaments, is hosting them locally here in Nigeria, of which we've, from now till the end of December, we literally have 5 major tournaments every 6 months from now till December 2026. And this includes a World Cup or several World Cups, Senior African Championships, and then the Commonwealth Fencing Championships, which we're currently the front runner in the bid. Now, the objective for those competitions is that we're bringing the best fencers in the world to Nigeria, and it gives access to the people locally. So you're not having to travel far to see the best fencers, inspires them, and it gives our fencers the opportunities to be able to compete and secure world points, because that's really how you build your rankings. And we've done very well in that area. So, of course, this is where the challenge is that we have, because funding is a big thing in every sport, and fencing, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of funding. So we are always looking for sponsors. We are always looking for people that can support us, and that's why we love programs like this to come on to say our story, where we've come from, how much we've actually achieved within a very short period of time, and then push forward talents like Nkosi, Wisdom, who are doing excellently well. You said in 8 years Olympics. You'll be surprised to know that Nkosi just missed out on the Olympics. He went to the qualifiers in Nigeria. Wow. I think he made it to the quarterfinals. At just 16, he fenced with literally the best fencers in Africa, and it's only one slot that they get. We also had a young lady, Somto, who got to the semifinals of the Olympics. So I'd say in the next 4 years, we're looking to have either one of these great fencers in there.
Yeah, Los Angeles in 2028. We'll be looking forward to that. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nkosi Bruce. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I will be looking forward to your Olympic journey. Hopefully we'll be in Los Angeles to cheer you on, where you'll be flying the colors of Nigeria at the Olympic Games. And to you, Adeyinka Sama, all I can say is that thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Hopefully we can catch up some of the time after the show. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight on Game On.